The wait is over on today's episode of the Producer Podcast, as I'm sitting down with the producer and director of Vindication, Jarod O'Flaherty, to discuss the making of season three of the hit show, the show's future, and his other recent film work. So buckle up and let's get started. Thank you very much, Jarod, for taking the time to come back onto the Producer Podcast.
Yeah, Micah, thanks for inviting me back. Is this second time, I believe? Second
Uh,
or third, somewhere
Third
in there.
time.
Third
Yep.
time. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I want to say the last time we talked, season three of the show hadn't even been greenlit for you yet. So maybe just kind of like big picture, catch us up to what you've been up to since season two of Vindication released.
Yeah, so let's see. Season two released, I want to say in September 2021. I believe it was around that time. And so it would have been after that you and I did our last podcast. And then probably 4 or 5 months after that, from our distribution partners, our streaming outlets, we got a green light to do the third season. A little bit of a budget boost, nothing dramatic, but 8 more episodes. We did go, season two was 10 episodes. Season three, we went to 8 episodes. So kind of like the budget number stayed around the same spot, but then we got 8 episodes. So it gave us more per episode to work with. So that's kind of, I think, where our budget boost came from. So yeah, so we went ahead and started shooting that. I think February of 2022 is when we started that. Wrapped shooting in August of 2022, and then it came out 2023 last September. So season three, 8 episodes has come out. And since then, it was received well. We've kind of had some change up as far as who our streaming outlets and distribution partners are and stuff. But I got the green light to do a season four. So I've been working on an 8 episode season four for the last year, in post at this point, and just seeing it all come together.
Cool. So I guess best place maybe to start is kind of tailing off of that season two cliffhanger that you guys had. And I guess I'm curious to know, like, did you always know who was actually in that body bag, or was that kind of like a little up in the air and you figured it out as you were writing season three?
That's a great question, and I'll talk about it openly without fear of spoilers because it's been out for a long time, and if people haven't watched, then that's not our fault. So, as we were creating season two, I knew that we wanted to lead up to a major cliffhanger so that there would be incentive and enthusiasm for us to do another season. So that was very much intentional, as to get to that point. As we were writing season two, really the idea throughout that is that our bad guy, our Sergeant Tomlinson was the character, that he would be the one in the body bag. And so in the later episodes, episode 7, 8, 9, we created these different people that would have motivations to do that to him, to put him there. And so that was kind of the idea. And it was going to be this, for people who are familiar with like television history, there was this thing in the 80s called Who Shot JR. It was a character on a TV show called Dallas. Or back then, the season came to an end. I think you see a gun get shot. This guy goes down. He was one of the lead characters. And so people had to wait the whole, off season to see who shot JR. And it was apparently this cultural phenomenon. I was too young to remember it, but I heard about it. And so that was kind of our like inspiration, who's in the body bag, right? And let's create different people that could do that. But what happened is, after season two was done, after we had seen it all, we start realizing we've created this great bad guy that people love to hate, that he's got all these things. If we put him in the body bag, I don't know that anybody's going to be upset about it or anybody's going to really care. It's just like, well, good, like he's gone. And then we don't have an antagonist, and it's just kind of this investigation of going after our good guys, like which of our good guys is the one that off to the bad guys. So things pivoted in the writing process to, okay, it's not going to be Tomlinson in the body bag. It's going to be someone else. It needs to be someone that's not just like, hey, let's pull them out of left field and throw them in. Let's have someone be there that it makes a whole lot of sense based on what happened in season two. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was very much something that changed in the writing process between seasons two and three, just based on audience feedback, audience sentiment, and what we thought would be the best storytelling.
What was the feedback after everybody learned who was in the body bag? Were people happy about who you chose, or a little upset?
I think the idea was, oh, I got to watch the next episode. Wait, what's going on? So
Hmm.
that was, I think, a positive thing. And I'll be just very honest. So what happened after season two came out? People were concerned. Is it one of our lead characters, Chris? Is she in the body bag, or is it Anthony in the body bag? Like those two seem like the most probable people that it would be. Those were the
Hmm.
two, and then people were like, "I don't want it to be this one. I love this kid," or "I that's my favorite character. I don't want it to be." So we went into season three and said, okay, it's not going to be either one of them in the body bag, but you're not going to know what happened to them because they were both in a very dangerous situation. And so we spent, the first half of season three not really knowing what happened to them. And so you asked, what did audiences feel about it? It was not like, oh, okay, that's satisfying, turn it off. No, it was, I got to keep watching because I still need answers.
Hmm.
There were more questions raised when the answer was given about the body bag.
Okay. Oh, so then kind of sticking with the writing side of season three, like one of the differences was all 8 episodes of season three told like one story, as opposed to the first two seasons that had some kind of mystery of the week. So, like, was that intentional from the start, or was that more like just as you figured out the storyline for season three, that was like the direction it needed to go?
When Vindication first got started, something from the very beginning is, it's a crime drama series, and crime dramas have a bad rap for the fact that they're so formulaic that you
Hmm.
can go to the 15-minute mark in any crime drama and the same type of thing is going to be happening. There's going to be the investigation and the misdirects. And then you get to minute 36, and that's when there's going to be a big twist. And then by 42, it's right. It's known that that's the formula, and all the shows do it. And I just always went into Vindication. And I'm like, when you sit down to watch an episode, I don't want you to have any clue what's about to happen, like what's going to go on. And so it's kind of the same thing with seasons. Instead of just, okay, let's just year after year, season after season, do this crime of the week, formulaic, recycling. It's like, no, we're going to do a new season. And this is going to be like a mini series almost, all focused on one crime instead of the crime of the week. And then when you go into season four, you can probably expect that we're going to twist things up again so that it's not. I would say season four might be a little bit of a mix where we do have a couple, two or three crime of the weeks thrown in, but then you also have a bigger storyline that takes up another half of the season. So that's really the thinking behind it. Is it the right idea? I don't know. Maybe there's a reason they're formulaic because that's what people like. They're comfortable. I know what to expect when I turn on this show. But with Vindication, I'm like, no, I want people to go in not knowing what they're about to see.
Nice. Yeah. No, and it definitely kept me guessing and wanting to watch the next episode as I made my way through season three. So then, I guess, big picture kind of on the technical side of making season three, were there things you were focusing on trying to improve from when you made season two, or things that maybe you were trying for the first time while making season three?
Yeah, on the filmmaking side, technical side, I mean, yeah, we always try different things. The one that jumps out, and this one isn't really exciting. Season two, we went to anamorphic lenses, and so that continued on season three. Our DP told me, like on the first day, he said, "Hey, I'm going to do something different to start season three, and you tell me if you notice it. Like, tell me if you can see what I'm doing different. I'm not going to tell you what it is." Okay, well, all right. So anyway, we shoot like the first two episodes of it, and he's like, "Did you notice anything?" I was like, "No, not really." And what he just explained to me is he used something called glimmer glass, which is, I guess, is some type of a filter that you put on the end of the lens that has some little speckles in it. And what it does is ends up softening the final picture so that maybe, blemishes on faces and pores and just those minor details. It kind of causes them to not be as prevalent, not be something that you notice as much, and gives kind of a more uh, polished look, I guess, to characters' faces and things of that
Mhm.
nature. So I didn't notice it at first. I think when you put them side by side, you can go, oh, okay, yeah, I see a little bit of a difference. So anyway, that was something we did with season three on the technical side that was a little different than previous seasons. We do always try to do new things. It's hard for me to think of one specifically, but you watch the season and you'll see different shots or different things that we
Mhm.
tried that you hadn't seen in previous seasons.
Just going off of kind of what you're saying there with the DP. I'm curious, like there had to be some good trust there between you and the DP to like let him do something like that and not even know what he was. So I guess like I'd be curious to hear a little bit more like how has that trust been formed, between you guys and like what advice would you have to other directors, producers out there trying to form trust
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
crew?
So Ron, our DP, he has shot every episode of Vindication back to season one, episode one in 2015. So he has been there the whole time. When we first went to start this series, he had decades of experience on films, on series, documentaries, all those sort of things. I had done lots of editing and stuff, but for like small little church projects, right? Like I'd never been on a real film set or any of that. So when we showed up to that first one, I mean, there were jokes about who's actually running the show here, just because he had brought all of that knowledge and things, and he was having to teach me things about, oh, technically, Jared, you're supposed to say this, do that, and really leading me along the way. And so that certainly started from a place of trust where he was bringing that. Now, I would like to think that over the years now, because of just the level of experience I've gained, the time I've spent editing the series, the feedback, all those sort of things, I would say that balance has, I'm not gonna say it's shifted, but there's definitely a mutual. If I say something, like he doesn't push back on it, and when he has ideas, there can be times maybe that I'll say, "Hey, let's do it this way," and whereas in the past season one, it would have been whatever way he said, that's what we're doing. So it just really has built trust, and a lot of times, we'll go to set. I won't have a shot list to hand or a storyboard. Here's what the shots I want. I'll just walk over and we'll stand next to each other and say, "Hey, how do we see this unfolding? What shots do you see?" I'll maybe tell him if there's a few that I want, like, "Oh, I want this or I want that." But it's just real collaborative based on the location that we have, how much time we have, as far as what we're going to shoot and how we're going to get it. And we've shot our 4 seasons now, all but one episode on Blackmagic cameras. And they're less expensive. They're definitely easier to get in consumer hands or prosumer hands. And I've always talked about, do we want to invest in like shooting on an Ari or a Red or any of this? And his feedback has always been like, I work on those, 11 months out of the year or 10 months out of the year. I work with those. And yes, you can spend your money on them. You'll get a nice picture out of it. But in skilled hands, these Blackmagics, you're going to get 98 to 99% of the same image as those cameras give me. So if that's where you want to spend your money for that extra 1 or 2%, sure. But, and it's very true. People look at our stuff and nobody looks and goes, "Man, you should get a nicer camera." No, in skilled hands, it can do a lot. And again, that's just kind of the trust the two of us have.
For sure. Yeah. I can relate to that. I had a project this spring and we were shooting on what a lot of people would have considered a lower tier camera, but the DP knew what he was doing and you can't really tell when you put it up against other images.
Mm-hmm.
I know one of the things that you had started doing with season two of the show was filming the episodes in blocks and more like a traditional film where you were mixing scenes from multiple episodes just based on locations. Was that something that you continued doing this season, or did you kind of go back to the more traditional TV style?
Every season that we have gone through has become more expanded, where we may have a shoot in February and we'll shoot half of 3 episodes, and then we come back in April and shoot the other half of those 3 episodes, those pieces. I want to say with season three, it was more like we would shoot 2 episodes at a time in a block, get most everything, and we would have a couple of shots we needed to pick up later on, right? Season four, which we just finished, we shot the 4 episodes across 2 blocks and then the final 4 across multiple blocks. But the problem is there was a bigger gap of like, oh goodness, 6, 7 months in between the first half of the season and the second half. So you had characters that had changed their hair color or, done things that you're like, oh no, like, are we going to be able to match this up? Whereas seasons 2 and 3, we kind of shot it in like a 6 month span, and this one was more like a 10 month span. So yeah, so this latest season four is the one that we did the most of. We would shoot like 4 episodes at a time, half of those, and then 2 months later shoot the other half of those 4 episodes. Do I recommend that? Is it the best way to go? You introduce problems that you wouldn't
Hmm.
have. Mainly, we did that because of one character's availability. He wasn't available for the first block, so we had to shoot all of his stuff in the second block, and that is what caused that to happen in season four.
Okay. I know one thing I think we talked about at some point was how with like season two, it was completely out and you were getting to see like fans' reactions and stuff before season three was even greenlit. But then with season four, that was kind of the opposite. It was greenlit, if I remember right, before season three was like fully out. So, like, how did that change or influence like decisions you were making in prepping for season four?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that is true. We started shooting season four before season three had even come out. I guess I knew the direction it was going to take. I had seen season three. It had been finished for about 9 months before our streaming partner decided to release it. So I had seen it. Many others had seen it. They knew what it was like. We'd had a screening for cast and crew about 4 months before it came out. So there was enough there to know I think we have a good product and fans are going to enjoy this season. And so it was safe to go ahead and get started on the next one without waiting too much. Now, there is a bigger jump maybe between three and four. There may be some favorite characters that don't come back. There may be some big storyline shifts that I really hope people don't see season four and go, man, I really miss all the stuff that you did in the first three. So we'll see how that goes. But it's always a risk, especially as you
Hmm.
get deeper into seasons. I think that the audience's expectations are a little higher.
Right.
They want each season to be better than the one before, and so you have that pressure to continue improving.
Yeah. Is that pressure something that gets to you at times, or how do you kind of deal with that type of pressure?
That I wouldn't say that gives pressure, knowing how our audience is going to feel about this. It's just maybe a little bit of in the back of your mind worry, but not one that's uh, painful or debilitating or
Hmm.
anything. It's just like I hope this works. If it doesn't, well, not much we can do about it at that point.
For sure. Um, so then I guess I'd love to hear maybe like what was your favorite part of making season three? And also maybe what was like your hardest part about making season three?
Yeah. Favorite part, what jumps to mind, and this hopefully isn't too spoilerish. You mentioned how there was the cliffhanger at the end of season two, where there was the warehouse and the body bag and the standoff and all that. Well, in season three, we went back to basically reshoot the outcome of what happened in that scenario. So we did a cliffhanger and then we stopped it. Well, we didn't shoot the rest of it in season two. So in season three, about halfway through, we go back to this location. It had changed. They had actually done some repairs on the building that our grip team with uh, drills and stuff went and like took out the repairs so it would look like the thing. We had to bring back all the same wardrobe, all the same characters, the same weapons. We had pictures on set of where the lights were hung. How did we match it? And so it was surreal though, once you had all those people there, all the props, the location, and to go walk on it, it's like I feel like I'm walking into like what I watched before. This final
Hmm.
scene is like I'm there. And I remember taking my phone out and just spinning around like this is too crazy to because it was like a year and a half, maybe 2 years later, and it felt like you stepped back in time into this moment and then filmed the conclusion to that. So that to me was the most fun. There were other really neat things. If you've seen season three, the concert scene, the rodeo scenes that
Hmm.
we shot, where we had lots of extras. Those are really enjoyable as well to do that. The most difficult part, goodness, there are always things that come up. I know when we shot the first two, one of our main cast members tested positive for COVID and couldn't show up. So we shot all of the scenes with that character without them there, just in case something happens and they can't come back. You at least want to have something, no matter how bad it may be, right? I was like,
Right.
I would rather have one bad scene in a completed episode than have an incomplete episode.
Hmm.
So one of those in particular, the character that got sick, and then the other one, we basically turned it into a monologue where the person walked around and acted like they were talking to the other person, but it was really they were talking to themselves, almost like a
Hmm.
prayer. They were saying it out loud, so it was the whole scene just without the other side of it. And I feel like that would be a neat thing to release as a like a bonus feature on a DVD or Blu-ray sometime. Is that scene? It was actually really good, but we eventually in the next block went back and reshot it with the character who had become ill, and that's what we used in the final draft of it. But
Okay.
the little things like that always pop up. The concert scene I mentioned when we got there that day, the band, the rock band that was playing, their drummer still to this day don't know what happened, never showed up. And so we're like, I saw them rehearsing, and I'm like looking, going, why is there no drummer over there? And I go over and talk to the band members. Yeah, I keep calling, the guy's not answering his phone. I don't know what's going on, and here we've got 60, 70 extras. We've got this venue.
Hmm.
How are we going to shoot a concert without a drummer? Like, right? Well, one of the guitarists, his brother came out that day just to observe, just to see what was going on with this film shoot. He happens to be able to play the drums. Guy jumps in and can play every song just off of his ear that he'd never practiced. Like, I mean, just off of ear, could drum the whole, and so he's the one who ends up in the final edit. So yeah, that's one. I mean, I look at God's provision in those situations. Like that whole thing could have fallen apart, and yet you have this
Hmm.
guy that could jump in, and you would never know that he wasn't the drummer that was meant to be there.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So I have to ask, because since you brought up the extras, because there were quite a few scenes throughout season three that had significant numbers of extras. Like, how have you gone about like getting people to come out to be extras and kind of get the word out? Because I know a lot of, especially beginning filmmakers, that's always something they struggle with is getting people to come help them make their films.
Yeah, by the time season one was finished, I had used up all of my neighbors, my relatives, our church members, like everybody, all those people to come out and be extras. Like they had done it. It wasn't that interesting to them anymore. And so it's like, what do you do? Because extras add production value. If your whole
Hmm.
show is two or three people, it adds production value and have these big crowds. So for season three, I would say most of ours that had the bigger scenes, it was always a mixture. We would have some actors who just wanted to get on set. And so we'd have three or four of them come out. The venue owner would have, hey, I know, 10 people that would want to come be a part of this. I'm thinking of the rodeo in particular.
Hmm.
Hey, I've got some people that want, hey, bring them on out, and then you would have your traditional extras that, want the credit, want the set experience, so they would come out. For the concert scene that we did that really had the most, we had some fans, friends of the production who really helped organize that, and so they reached out to all of their social circles, their church, their community, their all that, and said, hey, and they brought out tons of people for that. So it was really just kind of a collaboration. And then we'd have like even for the concert scene, one of our crew members, like her two daughters came out. And so it's never like this one stop, oh, we'll just go here and grab our extras. You're always
Hmm.
pulling from different places, and it's now been 5, 6 years since we shot season one, so our church has had some turnover. So you now have people who haven't been on a film set and would be interested in doing it. So we're always looking, where can I find more extras, where can I bring people in, and that's kind of the trick, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I know one other thing that you've been working on besides Vindication is another project that's been shooting down in the Dallas area. Um, and I'd love to just hear more kind of like how you got attached to that project.
Sure. So, I mean, for the last several years, Vindication has been all consuming. It's been the primary focus. And whether I'm in pre production, production, post production, it has really filled up my schedule. So I haven't really had opportunities to explore other things, although I'm very, very open to them, to doing other projects. And so there were some people connected to Vindication that were on board with another pilot that was shooting for a series. And when they were looking for a director, they reached out to me and said, "Hey, what about Jarod? I mean, he's been doing episodic for years now at a pretty good quality level." And so they reached out to me, sent me the script, let me take a look at it, and for me, it was the first time to be a part of a project that I wasn't the showrunner, this wasn't my vision and my ideas, but I really felt like the skills that have developed over the years with performances, with shaping a scene, with all those sort of things would certainly be valuable to this project. And so I signed on to direct it, and we shot a pilot over a few days back in February. It was in between the first 4 episodes of season 4 and the final 4 episodes. It was like right in between there that I was able to go in and do that, and saw some great performances. Worked with some new people. I think right now I've seen some rough cuts of it, but where it goes from there is really not. Like I said, I'm not
Hmm.
the showrunner on it, so we'll see what happens with it.
Yeah. Was that challenging at all, like adding another project to the mix while you were still in the midst of season 4?
So I had to like allocate just this small block of time to devote to it, whether it was making shot lists or script reviews and preparation. And so there was time focused on this other project. And then as soon as it wrapped, then I was moving on to Vindication. So, the challenge is again, you're taking someone else's vision and ideas and trying to translate it into something that will be a solid finished product. And so that was different. Whereas for me on Vindication, if I see something that I don't think works and I'm like, hey, we're not doing that line or throw that scene out, right? But when you're on someone else's project, you don't have that freedom. So
Hmm.
you work with what you've got.
Yeah. Doing that project, was there like anything you learned on it that you were then able to take back to Vindication and kind of implement to your sets?
I will say a lot of Vindication people ended up working on that other project. So while we were there shooting it, a lot of us said, "Man, this really feels like we're doing Vindication right now. It's just something different." So I don't know that there was a whole lot that went from one to the other, but you always learn things as a director. You may learn little tricks of, "Wow, that really improved the performance," or "Hey, here's how we got past this hurdle or this issue." I work as a producer as well, and that's I want to say much more of my time than directing stuff. Whereas
Hmm.
that project, I didn't have to produce. So it was nice that I just showed up on set right at call time and grabbed my sides and got to work as opposed to all the other things a producer is doing in between shoot days and afterward and those sort of things.
Yeah, I bet. I want to turn a little bit towards like social media, marketing, and all of that. I guess first I'd love to hear how you kind of went about using that to help market season 3 of Vindication.
So with Vindication, we have never any budget that we have had, we have always put to what ends up on the screen. So while it's very unorthodox, we've never said like, hey, here's how much is for production. This is how much for marketing. So anything we've done has been very organic. It's been grassroots. And surprisingly, as more people watch the show, they binge watch it, they spend 5, 10, 15 hours watching the show. They don't just want to leave it behind. They'll hop on social media. They'll start following. They'll look it up. They'll share something about it. And so we've had this audience grow from that without us necessarily having to be proactive in chasing down. And while I would love to do that at some point, I think there's a lot of people out there who have never heard of Vindication, who've never seen it, that would enjoy it. We just haven't found a way to get that to them yet.
Mhm.
It has been nice to be working on something that there are fans out there, people who are waiting on it, people who are passionate about it. They buy T-shirts, they buy stickers, they follow the social media. I know that when we post stuff, I'm more of the hey, let's post quality content a couple times a month instead of this. Hey, every single day we got to keep posting things because I see the people that do that and their engagements can really suffer from
Mhm.
oversaturation. And so on Vindication, it's like, no, we're not going to oversaturate. We'll just keep it more sporadic. And when we do, we see a really large engagement response from our audience because of that. And so that I think keeps people hungry for more of the show and interested. So that's kind of been our approach. It's been grassroots. It's been not something that we're putting a lot of money behind yet. It could always happen in the future, though.
Okay. So you mentioned like the t-shirts and the stickers and kind of some of that merchandising side. So like was that your idea or how did that idea come about? And I don't know, I guess like you don't see a lot of faith-based films other than like The Chosen really getting into that side of things. So like yeah, I'd love to hear more about
That
that.
came 100% from the fan base. I would get messages all the time. Where do I get a shirt? How can I buy a shirt? Because we would buy shirts for like our cast and crew. So people would see those. Hey, how do I get one of those? I want one of those. I want to support the show. I want to be a walking advertisement. And people would always ask me, and it's like, I don't have time for that. Like, I don't want to put the order in, mail this stuff. Like, I just don't have time. And unless you're doing it at massive volumes like The Chosen, it's hard to really make it financially. It's not like we're
Hmm.
making tens of thousands of dollars off of merch. It's something smaller. So I had a daughter who was graduating around that time and had an interest in that and was doing some shirts and stuff just on her own. And so I was like, hey, you want to take over this? You want to get some shirts going, sell them, stickers, those sort of things. And, you'll Vindication gets its cut and all that sort of stuff. And then she makes, a small percentage on each sell. But that way it took it out of my hands. And she has handled that for a while. And again, that's something that could really expand as the show gets more popular. I know when season 4 comes out, we're going to want to have some new merch because people will be on a weekly basis watching season 4 and want to get stuff. Just like when season 3 came out, that's when we had the most orders for shirts and stickers and posters and all that. Is when the enthusiasm was at its highest levels.
That's cool. And it's something even myself, I'm with some project ideas I'm kicking around. That's something in the back of my head is like, how do you provide another avenue to market yourself and interact kind of with your fan base?
Yeah, and just a little side tangent. I have a lot of people ask me, "Hey, are you going to do a movie? You want to do a movie?" Or people will talk about, "Oh, I'm working on a feature film." Like it's just like the pinnacle. You're on a feature film. That's the biggest and the best. Not that episodic TV, maybe that stuff. And for me, having done the episodic and the binge watching and all of that, I'm like, rarely do you see a faith-based movie where people want to go buy shirts and put stickers on their computers and they want to, follow along. A movie is kind of like a sit down, you have a nice experience, so it was a nice story. You may watch it again, you may buy a DVD to throw on your shelf, but you move on. Whereas a series that has been a part of your life over 4 or 5 years, you have followed these characters and watched different seasons, you grab a t-shirt and you throw it on and you go wear it out in public and talk to people about it and share it at your small group about the show you're watching. And so I'm like, I kind of like that. I think this episodic, you feel more connected with it than the whole feature film movie space. So anyway, it's why I enjoy that one. And again, it's rare that you would see movies that people are buying multiple shirts and merchandise to support a movie because a movie is
Mhm.
more of a linear start and finish project.
Right. Oh, that's a good point. And yeah, episodic is still something on my bucket list in the film industry to work on one of these days. Um, so then I wanted to jump back to the social media, and talk a little bit about just how like you as a filmmaker have used like your personal pages either to market yourself or the projects you're working on. Because just across the industry, it seems like everybody uses their social media differently and what how they do it. And I'd love to just hear what you do and why you do it and what works for you.
Yeah, and that's tricky, especially when you're starting up of what stuff goes on my personal page and what stuff goes on the Vindication page or the projects page, and how do you cross-pollinate those? Just really behind the curtain, like a lot of likes, follows, engagements I get are from actors who want to get another credit on their IMDb's and would love to be a part of the show. And so we get a lot of fans that are those, which I'm thankful that they do that. I really hope that they watch. It's not just, oh, I want to be in the show, but I've never seen it, right? So there are a lot of those. The ones that I love the most to see are the people that start following. And I've never heard of them before. They're not like a third connection. They're not a relative. It's just like, I have no clue who this person is. And it's someone
Hmm.
thousands of miles away who happened to find the show and then they become such a fan that they want to follow it and just keep up to date with it. Or some of them will follow me. They're like, they looked up they enjoyed this show so much that it caused them to go look up the director and go follow him. So those moments for me are like, how cool is that to have that it's just like a compliment. It's a pat on the back. It's a attaboy
Hmm.
sort of things that people would enjoy the show that much to do that. So I see those, and those people obviously on my personal page want to see the stuff that only the director would post. But then I also have like friends that are outside the film world that are like, I just want to see your kids and your family, not all the film stuff. So there's kind of a balance there of which one. And self-promotion is not something I'm a big fan of. I'd much
Hmm.
rather have others promoting stuff. So I'm not one in the industry that like, oh, hey, I want to tell you how great I am and how great my show is and this and that. If something comes out, a news article or something cool, sure, I will share it. But mostly after many years of an episodic, most everybody who knows Jarod knows about the show and they've decided whether or not they're going to follow it or not. So
Uh-huh.
there's not a whole lot of marketing I can do personally that will send people to the show at this stage. And again, that may be a difference between a feature film and a series because a series has spanned years and years and years, whereas a movie may just be something that kind of lands and fizzle. I don't want to say fizzle. That sounds bad, but maybe the longevity of its lifespan isn't that of a series.
Right, for sure. So I got just a couple kind of wrap up final questions here for you. So the first that I just, I gotta ask because people give me grief if I don't, but are there any teasers for season 4 that you're able to share with us on what to expect?
Yeah. So at the end of season 3, our lead character, Gary Travis, kind of makes a comment about he may have some ideas for the future when he's being offered basically an opportunity to join the FBI or to do something different. He says, well, I may have some other ideas for the future. So when we go into season 4, he's not just sitting behind a desk as a sergeant investigating cases of the week anymore. He's got some other ideas of what he wants to do in the future, taking the skill sets that he has developed as a detective for many years. And so that's the course it will take. And there will be some character. We'll see most all of our favorite characters will make an appearance, but some of them will transition to the background, and then new characters will form in the series. So it's very much transitional in that. If you're like, man, I just can't wait to more East Bank detective work with my favorite characters, season 4 may not be what they're looking for. But I think once you get 2 or 3 episodes in, it's one where you just have to keep watching, like what is going to happen next, what's going on here.
Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds cool. And I like it when the shows change and the characters grow. So I'll be looking forward to seeing what route you take.
Good.
So then my final question, and I actually thought this would be an interesting one. I asked you this way back when I did season 1 of the podcast. And so I thought, let's ask it and see if your answer has maybe changed all these years later. But that question is like, what would be a piece of advice you would give to somebody just getting started producing film projects?
Yeah, it's probably the similar answer. What advice would I give to someone who's just getting started? Um, I think some people go in and they're just getting started, and their expectations are to make what they have seen on the big screens out of Hollywood, that these giant corporations with all sorts of assets and resources and experience are producing, and people are like, I want to go do that. And when they quickly realize I'm not going to be able to hit that level for whatever reason, funding, experience, abilities right out of the gate, then they decide, oh, this isn't for me. And my advice to them is like, no, make the absolute best you can with what you have. If you don't have any money, then just show the world that you can tell a good story, whether it's with a cell phone and some clay on a desktop or whatever. Tell a good story, show the best you can, and that will create more opportunities. But I think a lot of people, they see they're enamored with the possibilities of the stuff they see on the big screen and they want to go do that. And it's like, no, to get there, you're going to have to start with what can I make with what I have now? And my advice to them is go do that and be encouraged in that. Don't shut down. Don't, close the door, walk away because you can't hit that big one right out of the gate. I'm still right there, like right now. Like I'm like, when do I get to make a big project, where I'm not having to call people, will you come be an extra, where bigger stuff happens. So I'm still wanting that. Vindication isn't like, man, this is what I always aspired to do. There's still more for me, but I guess I'm just dumb enough, silly enough, whatever, to keep trying, doing the best with what I have, as opposed to walking away because it's not, what I wanted.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And similar to the answer you gave back then, but there was definitely, I think, a new level of depth there
Okay, good,
in
good. So I'm
your
growing a
answer.
little bit.
All right. Well, I guess those were the questions I had. I don't know if there's any kind of final thoughts or things that's like, you should have asked this, or I'd love to, touch on this briefly.
No, I think we covered most everything. I mean, yeah, it's a topic I can talk about for a long time, but you always have the like, oh, watch out for spoilers. So what I love to talk about is after an episode or a season comes out, let's talk about what you just watched. Let's
Hmm.
talk about the characters and the story and what you were thinking. That's always one of my favorite things to do. And that one never I have to tell myself, hey, let's stop at some point. When I have reviews with our composer, he's usually one of the first people that sees our rough cuts. And he
Hmm.
and I will get on the phone for usually about 2 hours because I've got a million questions. What do you think about this character? What do you think about that? What were you feeling in this moment? What did you expect would happen there? So that's what I love talking about. So if we ever have an opportunity to do a review right after it and talk storylines, I'm all for it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to keep that one in mind. Well, thank you once again, Jared, for taking the time to come on to the show.
And thank you for what you do. I've been on many road trips listening to your podcast and learning things from other producers, filmmakers, writers, people in the industry. And so you have really given a great resource to people who are interested in doing this work.
On that note, we're going to wrap up the investigation on this episode of the Producer Podcast. Stay tuned for future investigations once season 4 of Vindication releases and for next week's new episode of the Producer Podcast. Until then, make sure to subscribe to the Producer Podcast, and thanks for listening.